So in a perfect time on YouTube, fellow YouTubers can be friends and even cohorts, and I trusted someone I shouldn't. For those who haven't noticed, I have a passing affiliation with YouTuber Lily Orchard, introduced by an old team member as their partner. I really appreciated that Lily defended me from the online hate. All her videos about those are technically true and correct, and I still appreciate that gesture, but I learned some things a few months ago. Lily has done some pretty immoral things that I wasn't aware of, and I didn't go looking for originally because of my own triggers. The biggest is writing this fanfic called Stockholm. I'm not going to go into the subject matter too much because it's disgusting, but it involves My Little Pony characters having relationships with coded children from the My Little Pony universe. Lily claims she didn't write this fanfiction, but there's tons and tons of evidence that she did, and we'll get more to that later. Now, something else I have the unfortunate knowledge of is Lily also likes to lie. When people brought up that she wrote this fanfiction, she lied, even though there's a mountain of evidence that she did, including audio of her discussing character tropes in it.
The interesting thing about Stockholm is that it's actually, the equestria depicted in Stockholm is trigendered, where you have men, women, and intersex women. And I always thought we never really did as many interesting things with that concept as we could have. I mean, that was like the big difference there. That was the interesting thing we had, and we never really did anything with that. And that's kind of something I've always been just kind of kicking myself for. So I think if we were to go back and redo Stockholm, we would explore that idea a little more.
She also likes to claim that anything that makes her look bad is doctored. All the receipts from her fanfictions are doctored, some of the lady grooming allegations that we'll get to shortly are doctored, and AI, even though AI voices weren't available publicly at that time. Doing a simple Google search of Lily Orchard AI, I couldn't find anything even remotely close to what Lily claims is happening to her. All this information that I have the displeasure of catching up on over the last few months makes me feel used like a prop and not really a person. I had a positive relationship with both Lily and Michaela before I even learned that Lily's sister, Courtney, is making sexual assault allegations.
I was 6 and Lily 7. Lily started coercing me into games in private. She usually would ask me to sleep over in her room, and with us being close at the time, I would be happy to. It was during these sleepovers she would try to and succeed into talking me into things. Things like letting her practice kissing on me, asking me to come feel this, and would grab my hand and stick it in a puddle of what I now know to be cum on her stomach. She would wait until I was asleep, or at least thought I was, stand over top of me and masturbate, ejaculating on my blankets and crawling back into her bed to sleep. This went on for about 4 years, until I was old enough to realize what she was doing to me wasn't okay. She also started asking me around this time what I thought about incest, if I thought it was a good thing or a bad thing, and why. Like any normal human being, I responded with disgust. I'd caught her sneaking into my room a few times. 3 to be exact. I'd wake up to my door slowly creaking open and her face pressing through the crack, looking right at me to see if I was asleep.
And the rest just followed. Bestiality porn commissioned by minors, flashing your tits on YouTube, which is against YouTube terms of service, incest shipping, Pretendian bullshit, and the list goes on and on and on and on. I invited my friend Mad, who is Native American, to discuss why Pretendian culture isn't great and also his own cultural background. Here's what he had to say.
Bonjour. My name is Marty, though most people know me as Mad and or Mad Waffles. I'm a member of KP's community, the head moderator on her Discord server, and a member of her team. I'm 29 at the time of writing, but will be 30 by the time of recording, and I'm a two-spirit person. Any pronouns are also acceptable. I've been asked by KP to record this for the purposes of the Lily Orchard video and speak to some details, concerns, and confusion regarding Lily's status as a Native American, First Nation, Indian, or American Indian person. And as a brief aside before we get started, as it was brought to my attention that this is a point of contention that may cause Lily to dismiss any criticism sent her way, but you may have noticed that I just said American Indian and Indian. Both are perfectly valid self-identifiers that Native American people use across the continent, but may become a bit tweaked if a non-Indian uses it when speaking to them. In the case of Indian presented on its own, what I am saying is essentially spelled NDN, as it's become a pretty popular internet-era shorthand that has come close to my heart that both pronounces like Indian and can stand for not dead native. But a lot of American Indians also use that phrase, including myself, to self-describe, because of its unique cultural proximity and identification to use, as it's the closest thing to an American catch-all that sounds like an ethnic designator rather than Native American, which carries its own connotation of association with the United States. Not all of us are into that. Lily has, on her blog in the past, likened the use of the term Indian to our community's equivalent of the N-slur. However, I would argue that this is simply performative baiting to make herself seem both more progressive and more Indian by blowing up at people who use the term, regardless of their ethnic makeup. I would argue that the only resemblance is that my mom is perfectly fine using it to describe herself, and by being described as such by other members of our culture, but has suppressed an active urge to cut someone who is not of the culture who calls her an Indian. Before starting with any Lily-related things, I feel it's important to be honest and clear about my own background history as an Indian person. While I'm not overly fixated on proving how Indian I am, or relying on my background to equate me to being some kind of expert, I feel like it's important for you to know the source and background of this information. I am what's called a white-passing First Nation person, meaning that I basically don't go outside and have become pale enough that if you give me a fleeting glance, I might actually pass for white, or even some sort of Asian, an ongoing argument at my workplaces historically before coworkers are explicitly told my ethnicity. I've grown up in southern Idaho near the Fort Hall Indian Reservation of the same region. I have largely lived there, San Diego, and northern Nevada throughout various points in my life. However, my ethnicity is Anishinaabe and Athabascan, and my specific tribe is the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians. Technically, that would be my reservation as well if I didn't live 2 to 4 states away at any given time. My great-grandmother Cecilia and great-grandfather are my primary ancestors of concern through my grandmother Charlene and my mother Christine. I do have some supposed patrilineal ancestry through my biological father, but the vagueness of the claim as Cherokee has caused me to largely not give it much thought or concern regarding my cultural background. Though I don't really mess with concepts like blood quantum for the purposes of roles, I do know that my blood quantum through my mother is just shy of 1/8 as far as Ojibwe is concerned, and roughly the same amount in Apache, around 11-point-something% in the former, and about the same to possibly more through the latter. Due to a general lack of documentation that started with my great-great-grandmother Mary Riddle, it is difficult to know things for that line, and as mentioned, my grandma Sis's first husband has been overall the opposite of helpful with anything regarding any of his lineal information, a big issue with the concept altogether, honestly. Culturally, our family is very urban Indian, with an attempt to return to a more traditional state of being in some areas while staying modern in others. Our grandma Cecilia has never really been specific or willing to talk on Indian and school things, so her knowledge was lost and taken by, to our best guess, the Brandon Residential School, the Elkhorn Residential School, or possibly Portage La Prairie Residential School. This all is to say, I don't pretend to be super native, or more or less Indian than anyone else. Everything I speak on is influenced by a cultural lens, the same as anyone else and as our community is. Things I say may not be true for every Indian person, but that does not make them any more or less authentic at the end of the day. So, very briefly, what is a Pretendian? Well, a Pretendian is a common slang term used to describe a person who falsely, or in an exaggerated fashion, claims various types of Indian status, ethnicity, or cultural identity. It's a type of cultural appropriation that is very frequent and far-flung across this continent, both knowing and unknowing. For ends that can be either innocent or nefarious, people in the Americas have a long history of misrepresenting themselves as Indian, and often it has coincided with some financial incentive, and with the era of the internet, a new type of social currency has caused a rise in places of false Indian claims. Historically, Pretendians are often excluded on a communal level, and through various practices and tactics, a great number of Indians have learned to spot Pretendian claims and behaviors. But it's honestly an exhausting thing to deal with, and has created a sort of strange toxic paranoia among Indians in person and online both, that causes even some legitimate Indians to be excluded because of a differing cultural experience. Accordingly, any accusations of Pretendianism is very serious, just as much as the act itself is. This is why I don't tend to level it willy-nilly, and only ever really call out cases that are egregious, obvious, or very toxic. So, the standard by which one typically substantiates their Indian status in the government's eyes is through a concept referred to commonly as blood quantum. Blood quantum is exactly what the name sounds like, a quantification of blood or ethnic genetics that one has inherited from their parents. Blood quantum is often described in casual conversation by saying how much of a certain ethnic group you are, half Irish, quarter Scottish, 1/32 Polish on your grandmom's side, etc. But blood quantum is an unpopular idea in the Indian community as it has been historically used to exclude people from enrollment in tribal benefits, and has been baked into the cultural opinion of many native people through a number of means, but primarily to serve the purpose of gatekeeping Indianness. Blood quantum, despite having a vaguely scientific idea, is in fact bad science. It's been known since 2003 that all humans are 99.6 to 99.9% identical on their DNA, and while there's a ton of variation which can occur in that 0.4 to 0.1%, it's largely a concept that holds over from European colonialism. Further, from the variance of shared genes between direct relatives, that can be low as 2% for factors of traits that one associates with race. There is almost no scientific basis to the concept of race, and largely becomes attributed to some shared regional physical attributes and stereotypes. That's why the common idea of Indian ethnicity has been gaining traction in many online and in-person Native communities, as ethnicity is substantiated on culture and ancestry rather than genetics. However, a lot of Indian people will continue to judge Indianism and designate between Indians and Pretendians based on this standard. Personally, I do not agree with it, but it is a thing that is important to some Indians. So what makes a Pretendian? Well, a standard that is almost universally agreed upon as culture. One needs to have some familiarity and involvement with a native community of some degree of size, understand the institutions and norms, and exhibit some sort of social behavior. Attending powwows, interacting with the broader community, helping your old uncle sell his extra weed, making and eating native foods, these types of things often are commonly accepted cultural behaviors in Indians, but not doing all of them isn't always a reason to exclude someone. The people on the American continents are so diverse and varied that there is no certain way to define a culture as the native one, or to say that there should be one surefire Indian culture through movements like the Pan-Indian one that do try to create a hegemony that native people can live together under. There is still not an inherent monolith. What does this mean? Well, it means that identifying a Pretendian solely based on cultural expectations is going to be hard, especially if the observer in question doesn't have a similar cultural background or come from the same region or linguistic group as the person they're assessing. Basically, it's hard to identify someone as Pretendian unless they're trying to claim to be the same or of a similar culture to your own, especially if you're inquiring purely on a cultural axis. But, broadly speaking, the following would be standards by which I usually consider someone to be a Pretendian, and these are all ones which I believe that Lily meets. They are inconsistent, ignorant, monolithic, and Cherokee. So all of this may bring up a question of why? Why lie and misrepresent yourself on something that is so complicated and clearly hurtful and important to so many people? The reasons that one might be a Pretendian are often varied and specific to the individual, but the most pertinent to Lily's case would be money and deflection, in my opinion. The need for legislation, such as the Indian Arts and Crafts Act of 1990, is indicative of how historically harmful the claims of status and sale of native or native-style art has been on First Nation communities throughout the United States. And actors such as Iron Eyes Cody, or as you might know him, the Crying Indian from that environmentalism commercial, have historically found ways to capitalize on native identity by pretending and engaging in a performance that is specifically curated to colonizers' perceptions and desires of native people, occasionally in service of non-native agendas and images. For Lily, as a content creator, the financial component is obvious. The reality of monetized personalities online is that all actions are, on some level, money motivated. On some level, Lily is trying to capitalize on being native. Deflection is a common purpose that some people see in being a Pretendian too, and one that I feel rings especially true for Lily, to shield themselves from criticism on an issue or statement. If someone says something incorrect, despite having some or no authority on the issue, they can simply make a claim that, well, that's not how I was raised to do it, and I'm from insert tribe here, in order to essentially sidestep a criticism because it no longer becomes about them, but their purported ethnicity. It is also an effective way to leverage social currency to make oneself an authority on an issue by some sort of perceived association in an attempt to strengthen their argument and deflect from further critique. If you need indication of Lily doing this herself, then simply search Native, Native American, or First Nation on her blog to see her talking over people and using supposed status to deflect when people point this out. It's flagrant, obvious, and a touch gross. I've spoken to Lily's sister Courtney on a few occasions, and would consider her to be a friend. If she asked me to do something, even if slightly unreasonable, I'd likely do it. We have a fairly good rapport. When assisting the mod team with Lily's safety report, I inquired as to some more concrete details regarding Lily's ancestry when penning the section of concern to her native status. I feel it's important to mention this in order to be clear on my own bias towards my sources of information regarding Lily as a person. Courtney informed me that their maternal great-grandmother, through their grandfather named Hank, was Sauk, Fox, and Iroquois. While this information could imply that she has any number of 3 to 8 different ethnic groups within the region in her ancestry, it also similarly implies that her own blood quantum was possibly not totally native. The reason that BQ is coming up here is because, based on this claim, through this sole unenrolled ancestry in their grandfather Hank, puts them at about 1/8 total. assuming that the shared traits were passed down at a maximum for each generation, and even then it was split between at least 3 distinct tribes, and no other ethnic traits came from his one native parent. That means at best 4% of their inherited traits are from any of these people. In almost every case across the continent, Lily wouldn't be able to enroll for tribal benefits, and in Canada simply cannot due to how far removed from their own tribe Lily's family generation has become. Further though, Courtney has confirmed that their culture growing up in was remarkably consistent with their fathers, and that they have been described as more Newfoundlander than Canadian. And based on Lily's previous claim to be Cherokee, and more recent clinging to a status that their Mi'kmaq cousins benefit from as an indication that she is of that particular ethnic group, conversations with Courtney have informed me that they're not even related to the parent of those cousins from who they get their status, but it is doubtful to me that she has done any of the work to connect, know other native people, or learn about any of the culture she pretends to be of. Previously, on her Tumblr, she has claimed Cherokee status openly, an unlikely notion given how far Cherokee lands are historically from Newfoundland, and has since abridged it to include other nations altogether. It is not impossible for a Cherokee person to wind up that far north, but it's not terribly common either. I've told you a lot of things here, and you can glean from the way that I phrase them of what my opinion might be, but to be clear, I'm going to go ahead and say it now. I'm not someone who invests a terribly large amount of emotional energy into pretendians, catching them, or trying hard to recognize them. I tend to afford people the grace of assuming that they're being truthful, until a pattern behavior emerges and perpetuates that causes me to then become skeptical later. The phrase I have frequently said when people ask me about this is, pretendians tend to out themselves given enough time. And it's true enough. Most pretendians are not smart or consistent enough to keep up such an act perpetually and accurately and believably indefinitely. Lily Peet inarguably has some native ancestry. This is not a thing that can be discounted or taken from her, but it's also not terribly important. The key linchpin to being an American Indian is cultural. Our values, beliefs, and ways of being. It's why children who are adopted with no blood quantum are, in my eyes, just as native as their adopted cousin whose family has had 100% blood quantum and never left the area of origin of their people, ever. Through several patterns of behavior and testament via sibling, I am of the opinion that Lily has not only showcased that she is not native, but she is actively a pretendian. Not only does she misrepresent her actual ethnic ancestry, but she chooses to exaggerate through admission of how much an impact the culture has had on her life and how much she participates in it. The idea that she would do this and speak for people that she is not a part of, and often over a number of us, has made me feel sick. There is never a positive outcome for being a pretendian, and the best one that can be hoped for is that she admits to this and either never claims status again, becomes an ally, or makes an active effort to connect to the culture, learn, and grow from this wrong that she's committed. In closing, I think it's worth saying that based on statements and information gathered, one should come to their own conclusions. That is only fair to Lily and to yourself. I don't expect and wouldn't want someone to solely use my word on these issues. I can only speak to my own outlook and the conclusions drawn thereby. But I do appreciate you for giving what I had to say a listen, and hope you all have a peaceful and kind day. Back to you, KP.
Here's all of Lily's multiple names that she's used online at this point. Warning that one is a dead name, the one that she wrote her fanfiction under, so skip to this time code if that makes you uncomfortable. All dead naming after this will be censored, and links below if you want to check my work. Lily Orchard, Lily Peet, Jerry Peet, Tara Callie, Ball Spawn, etc. When I tried to confront Lily about this and offer to assist as a mod between her and Courtney, I was blocked on all platforms, and Lily, who claimed to be in the hospital that day, for what I assume was a made-up injury now, was on Tumblr 3 minutes later claiming that she felt used. Then she proceeded to tell her fans not to reach out to me, only so she could start painting a narrative herself. Ick. I recorded this conversation, which I'll play in a second, to make sure the contents weren't fabricated later, since Lily seems to be a pathological liar when she's caught in hot water. I don't like recording people without their knowledge, but I had to both protect myself, as well as this being an out-of-water case for an alleged rapist.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm alright. How are you?
Good, good. How's your leg doing?
Well, it turns out I have limited mobility. I cannot walk very much, and as much as I thought it was just me being out of shape, turns out I have an actual chronic injury, and I'm going to have to buy a cane.
That sucks to hear. Are you gonna be okay? Like,
Yeah, I'll be okay. I just need to not overdo it like I did the last 2 days.
right, that's fair. I mean, I imagine taking Lolo around would kind of exacerbate that, right? Walking around a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just wanted to check in because I just been kind of concerned about some of the stuff I've been seeing, like regarding your things, or like first of all, are you okay? Do you need to talk about it more?
What do you mean specifically?
Um, I like I don't even know where to start, but um like your sister did a YouTube video or something, right?
Oh yeah, Courtney. I don't call Courtney my sister anymore because, quite frankly, gosh, she is a piece of work. Courtney has decided that because I live a better life than her, that she's gonna try and tell people that I molested her as a child. I
Uh,
didn't. Go on.
well, I guess I understand, but it's just kind of a lot on the table, I guess, for me and my triggers, kind of learning about that. Regardless, like of if Courtney's unstable, that's fine. But I guess like it just seems like a lot of effort for her to talk about it publicly or start to, as just kind of is she just trying to slander you at this point? Like I'm just kind of overstimulated and kind of confused at right
Yeah,
now.
she is. She's just trying to slander me.
Okay.
I never touched Courtney. Um, Years ago, she claimed that our brother did. Um, and I believed her at the time, but I'm casting that in serious doubt now that she's turning those exact same stories on me.
Right. So the other thing that I guess is kind of coming out of the woodwork is this fan fiction that I didn't know about. Like, not to bring it up, but like I asked Michaela about it a couple of years ago, like when it was being brought up by like just in general, and she said it had something to do with your trauma. And I didn't push that, but I guess just like I don't
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Here's how this goes. So I was really fucking pissed off at the fact that fanfiction just basically just kind of let anything go in regards to content and just hosted a shitload of child porn. So I wrote a book where basically I wrote a fic where a bunch of pedophiles just get shot in the head. And then Bronies got really mad about it and started lying about its contents.
Right. Well, from my understanding, the context or Scootaloo and some of the other CMC have like relations with Rainbow Dash and stuff.
Nope.
Right.
Why are you asking me about all this?
Because I'm just kind of confused about like what's going on, and I just like if that were the case, I don't know why, if like it was making the rounds again. I don't know why you didn't tell me, hey, this like fan fiction's making the round, just so like I have to like to to kind of be exposed with this with other people, and I'm just kind of just confused at this
I
point.
generally just don't talk. I just generally don't talk about it because it's one of the most it's one of the more persistent pieces of fiction that pass around about me because nothing passes the rounds better than passes the rounds more than trans girl predator.
Right.
And just
Okay,
I
well,
just don't talk about it. I don't acknowledge it. I don't give it attention. That's pretty much all it's been.
okay, well, I guess at this point, regardless of you v Courtney, like I understand, I think there's been some transphobia on the table, and that's not okay. So, as a favor to you, if I reached out to Courtney and got her to apologize for the trans
No, no,
comments.
no. I do not want you to reach out to Courtney at all.
Um, okay, well, let me put it this way. I don't feel comfortable with any of this, Lily. I don't feel comfortable with these allegations against you. I just don't. So,
All right, goodbye.
okay, bye.
Now, since I don't believe I was a true victim of the leak, yes, she lied to me directly and passively for about 3 years. I thought I would use my platform instead to reach out to victims of Lily and talk about their own stories and why she's a dangerous person, and why she should probably be deplatformed at this point. I sat down and talked to Courtney recently about how we came together and how I started learning about information. Here's that conversation. Hello everyone, welcome to the interview section of the Lily video. I have Courtney with me. Say hi, Courtney.
Hi, everyone.
So there's been a lot of questions about the timeline as far as me understanding more of how Lily is, how Lily be. And for the most part, I was pretty much in the dark because I didn't look up this stuff because of my triggers. But Courtney and a bunch of other people helped me learn me, I guess. And it got ickier the more I learned, essentially. Courtney, I know you did a video about this, and people can go look at the video if you want to. It will be linked in the description and stuff, but the general things were Lily raped you as a child, right?
Yes.
And that's unfortunate. And, like, something I've noticed, too, is there's a big shift in the conversation between before you were on the scene and after you were on the scene, as far as, because Stockholm, the fanfiction Lily wrote, was kind of like, well, maybe she shouldn't have done it, but maybe it's just a fan fiction versus like an actual victim who had some physical contact with her. So would you say like how's that been going just generally?
Well, the problem with that is that Stockholm isn't just an edgy fic. Like, it's a literal crime in Canada for Lily to have written that. Like, the laws are literally written material, visualless, like pictureless material. If it depicts an underage person sexually, it's child porn. So Lily made child porn by writing that. Whether or not it's about me at this point is irrelevant because it's an actual crime just writing that, even if it's not about me.
Right. And that's
like, she could get 14 years in prison for it.
I think something that a lot of people don't really understand is, you know, going into all of this stuff, and I believe she's been able to get away with it mostly because it's dead named. Like, she doesn't associate with it anymore.
That, and she spent so long separating herself from it. Like, first it was she was fine admitting that she wrote it, and then it was she didn't write it, and then it was she only wrote parts of it, and now it's just completely made up by all of us. It's because she knows it's a crime, and like her own shift in when she claimed it and when she stopped claiming it is literally the year a man in Nova Scotia got charged and convicted of the same thing. Like, he got 10 years in prison, and then she went, oh no, that could happen to me.
I mean, it's just really transparent to me, like, on hindsight, knowing all this stuff. Yeah, I guess back to how I started to learn about all this stuff. So I think what basically happened is I was in another server where I mentioned I was talking to Lily, and then that was just around the time you did your first testimony on YouTube about it. And, you know, people were like, oh, you're talking Lily did this, and I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I don't know anything. So then I reached out to you and some other people as far as what exactly was going on. When was that? Well, that was in August, right? Something like that, September?
Yeah, it was late September.
And I think it took me like a whole week or two to kind of go over everything because there was a lot. I still haven't read the comic. I don't really want to read the comic. But just the general strokes of Lily being a problem on the internet for a long time, and just she's in kind of a weird area where, you know, she's able to get away with it because her channel's not incredibly big. But at the same time, again, now that you're on the scene, I think it's a whole different story.
She's also gotten away with it for so long because she cultivates her fan base so carefully. Like, she boots anybody who, for like the slightest reason, disagrees with her. So that at this point, she just has a circle of yes men. So, like, even if some of these people were slapped in the face with proof, they're not going to believe it because they've been conditioned not to by Lily.
Right, and what really bothered me about all of this is she compared us and said, like, oh, KP gets shit, I get shit too. Like, the 4chaners are making shit about me, and the truth was that that's not fiction, that's the actual thing, like, you know, so, I don't know, it just made me feel really icky.
Yeah, and
gross.
it's just a testament to how she manipulates her following, because, I mean, she manipulated the certain triggers that you have with your trauma to make sure you wouldn't go looking at this shit she's accused of.
And I think, like, and the thing that also frustrates me is I was spending so many spoons or so much emotional energy trying to work with Michaela once I was learning all this stuff and try to talk to her first. But I was basically rushed to talk to Lily due to some third-party interference, essentially. And Michaela turned on a dime, essentially, and that also really was upsetting because I like Michaela. I think she's nice, and, you know, I know it's important for Michaela to have a YouTube presence, and I think a lot of it has to do with that. But yeah, do you remember anything else as far as around that time that's worth noting? Because that's what I remember mostly. Like, I was talking to you, and I was talking to other people, and I was just absorbing everything, and at the time we thought someone else was going to do this video too, so that's why we're making this video now in March, when all this happened, like, fall of last year. Yeah, I just remember it being really hard and just a lot of stuff to absorb.
Yeah, and there was a lot of bullshit, honestly, on so many different ends coming at you, which was, like, half of my problem with all of it. It was everybody was assuming that you had already known of everything that Lily was accused of, and we're just going, no, I'm just gonna ignore this all. Like, so many people, even to me, sat there and went, well, KP supported this by doing this, and it's like, in the reality of the situation was you didn't even know that was a thing, because Lily does what she does with manipulating people. So, like, I ended up myself fielding a lot of bullshit from people going, well, KP platformed a predator. Yeah, because she didn't know that she was platforming a predator. That's not her fault. And then a whole bunch of other people seemed to think that you needed to all of a sudden take this public stand of just fighting my sister, which isn't, like, it's not something anybody has to do. Just because you have a platform yourself doesn't mean you have to use that to point out the wrongdoings of somebody else.
Yeah, and this is, I mean, we're basically doing that, but I never felt pressured from the community, from the Lily critical community, whatever, to do something on my behalf. And, like, I'm doing this because I want to, because I'm just tired of this shit, frankly. I'm tired of people just putting words in my mouth. I'm tired of people, you know, assuming that I knew things when I wasn't really paying attention, and I had other stuff going on in my life. So, I appreciate you guys for that, but,
I mean, in all honesty, if you were just choosing to ignore everything, then you wouldn't have bothered to even listen to my testimony.
Yeah, as soon as I realized there was actual, like, crime going on, or, like, even before the fanfiction, like, I was like, oh, wait, because I got hints that something was up, like, people would know I associated with her, and just like, well, if it helps KP with her trauma, smiley face, kind of, so no one told me directly, even though people kind of knew what was happening, which is also a little frustrating, but I also get that position of not wanting to tell your friend that, oh, your other friend is really icky. It's a hard position to be in, for sure, so... And then, I remember demoting Michaela from a mod status in the server, like, as soon as I heard something. And, yeah, she didn't even hear me out. I tried privately to reach out to Michaela. I tried to talk to other people about this. I tried to talk to Sketchy about this. No one really wanted to listen to me. So, and there's nothing really I can do about that. I did try. I wanted to try to help let people know that this was a thing, because the red flag to me was Lily wasn't willing to talk to you at all, even if I was going to be the mediator, and I could tell she was lying when she was talking to me, because she just had really short, quick answers, like, but yeah, that's why I think it's true. I think Courtney is telling the truth, and, if someone was really just, like, she bills herself as this big bad guy who can just beat up her stalkers, or whatever she calls them. But when push comes to shove, if people confront her with real truth, then she just kind of gets scared and plays victim, from what I've seen.
She just goes, no, you.
No, you're the slave owners, you're the slave owner, KP, which, again, all that stuff got debunked a while ago, and I wish I didn't sit on it as long as I did, but there's nothing really to do. Like, that's just who she is, and I think it's slowly getting worse and worse as Courtney speaks out, as more people speak out. regarding Lily. I think that's been the curvature for a couple of years at this point, because more people just say, hey, Lily bad, Lily bad, Lily bad, and the people who don't know are usually new people to her channel, from what I've seen. Yeah, that's kind of the state of what things are right now. Any other closing comments, remarks?
Yeah, just that, like, the people who sat there and went, oh, KP's not doing anything. KP was trying to protect the trans people in her community, okay? Lay off.
I mean, I tried to, and I think I succeeded, because there are a few people who... I mean, and that's a thing that I noticed, that people were willing to believe Lily because she was trans, and... You know, I'm all for trans rights and stuff like that, but, you know, if someone is objectively doing crime, regardless of their gender identity or their, like, if they're gay or whatever, that stuff doesn't matter if they're just doing crimes and being a bad person. So, like, Lily being trans was never a problem in my friendship with her, or Michaela, because they're both trans.
I mean, trans, cis, gay, straight, those are all adjectives. Who cares about adjectives? You know, coercion, lying, molestation, these are verbs. We care more about the verbs.
And that's something that Lily tries to kind of hide behind, is like, well, you don't like trans people, you're transphobic because you don't like me. And I'm just like, no, like, that's essentially like me calling someone a Nazi every time they don't like me, and I'm just like...
Oh, Lily does that too, though.
But she can't do that. She's not Jewish. Like...
She's also not claimed by any nation, but claims she's native.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Talks about being a Cherokee princess when Hank wasn't even Cherokee.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah. So, everything's horrible. Lastly, I invited Brittany, Lily's first online victim, to speak about her experiences. This is that conversation.
Oh.
Hello, hi. What's
yeah,
up,
don't
what's
be
up?
nervous.
Okay, I haven't heard this whole story at all. I just know bits, like I told you, so this should be entertaining, hopefully.
Talking about this is kind of rough and difficult because there was just so much going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it I didn't find out until after we had our falling out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me do an intro first. Okay. So with me I have Britt, who identifies as Lily's first online victim, correct? Yep. that we know of. So Britt and I met the first night, or one of the first nights back in, I think, August or September, when I was like, what's going on? Lily's bad. Lily's this bad. And she was in the call, and I didn't really know who she is, because I don't really. There's a whole Lily critical sphere thing that I didn't know existed until all of that happened. So hi, Britt. How are you doing?
Oh, like I said, ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. So, I haven't heard this story in its entirety. I just know it exists, and I believe it's a lot of Lily wanted to date you and use sock puppets and stuff to try to bait you. Was that generally it?
Yeah, in a nutshell, that was it.
Okay. So, the floor is yours. How did you guys start meeting and talking?
So, I met Lily in 2010, back when she had a different YouTube series called Rather Vocalized Illusion. At the time, she was going by Ballspawn, and she was in mask mode. So, at the time, she was identifying as a cisgender man.
Mm-hmm.
Her web series pretty much ripped off Zero Punctuation. She didn't talk about video games, it was more social commentary. I came across a video that she did about the Lavender Town Tone Syndrome, which was a big thing in the creepypasta spheres back then. And I ended up sending her a private message on YouTube, because that was before YouTube got bought by Google, so they had their own private message system. Sent her a message, she responded, and it started out with me wanting to, suggesting a video topic. We ended up talking back and forth and moving to Skype. I don't have access to a lot of our earliest conversations, because they were on an old laptop of mine, and how Skype worked is if you didn't have the original computer that you had the conversations on, then they were just lost to time.
Mm-hmm.
So the conversations I have in my chat logs consist of the conversations from the laptop that I had after that, and the Terra Cali logs, which were from 2013. I was able to access those because they were on Facebook. So pretty much the majority of our quote-unquote friendship was Lily desperately trying to get me into a sexual relationship with her.
Mm-hmm.
She made it very clear that she had a crush on me, and I repeatedly made it very clear that I was a lesbian. I wasn't into her like that. But at the time, I also felt very bad about it because I was not in the best headspace at the time.
You felt bad for letting her down?
Yeah, basically, because I met her at 17, turned 18 shortly after that, and we knew each other up until I was like 19 or 20.
Mm-hmm. And like, what was it like to have that initial correspondence? Because I know, like, me being a YouTuber, I don't have time to respond to everyone ever. So I imagine, like, when people start DMing a YouTuber that they admire, it's like a really big deal. Is that kind of how it felt?
I mean, kind of, sort of. At the time, she was very small. Like, she didn't really have an audience or a following. It was when she was first getting her YouTube channel off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little bit of that because I did admire her and I thought she was funny at the time. Hindsight's 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But like the whole reason I felt comfortable enough to message her in the first place was because she was smaller. So there wasn't as much of that starstruck going on.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious where you were in that, on that sphere. But yeah, continue, you guys were talking over Skype.
Yeah. Like I said, it's hard to keep this stuff straight because I was going through some shit at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Lily got me at a very vulnerable time in my life. My home situation was not good, to say the least. I'd gone through some very dark circumstances, and I'd been let down by the justice system and let down by my family over it. So she used that to her advantage a lot. I'm a recovering fawner, and at the time I had no idea what that was. So she was able to get in my head a lot and make me feel extremely guilty for not returning these feelings that she had for me.
Mm-hmm. Can you give an example?
It's hard to give a specific example for that. Like, a lot of it is in my chat logs. It was just a constant or near constant her trying to roleplay like being physically affectionate with me, and her using the Terra Cali sock puppet to try and manipulate and coerce me into it. Sometimes she would try to frame it as, oh, you should send Lily this as a joke. At one point, she claimed to set up a fundraiser for me when I was going through some difficult housing situations.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to basically convince me that I should have been sexual with her to show her gratitude for that. At one point, she even went as far as to try and reveal herself on a video call with me. And she framed it as trying to help me get over my fear of men in relation to the abuse that I had been through.
Mm-hmm.
So there was pretty much no low that she didn't sink to in trying to convince and coerce me into being sexual with her, and I did end up capitulating a few times just because I felt bad and I was questioning my own sexuality at that point.
Mm-hmm.
She was really digging into that. It's like any vulnerability that she knew about, which she knew about a lot of them because I was naive and I trusted her, she would exploit.
So you mentioned the Terra Cali, so can you tell people what that is?
Lily claimed that Terra Cali was a friend of hers that lived in her neighborhood, and that she directed and helped with some of the production of her earlier videos. She was even shown in the credits of some of those earlier videos. Around 2013, there was a Facebook account made for her that she started messaging me from, which was, again, mostly as a means for Lily to vent her more sick and twisted fetishes and fantasies and all sorts of disgusting crap while not having it technically be tied to her name. Tara Callie didn't exist. It took me a while to figure that out. She had her own Tumblr account, which is still up. Toward the end of mine and Lily and quote-unquote Tara's interactions, I had started doubting that Tara existed, because I had tried on numerous occasions to get any sort of solid proof of her existence. I never heard her voice. I never saw her on video. There was only one picture associated with her, which is fake.
What was the moment where you realized it was Lily?
It was sort of a gradual thing. It was just a combination of the strange excuses that she would have every time I would try to get her to either come on voice or send a voice message or send a photo or do anything that would have proven her existence. It was always, oh, I can't go on voice because people might record me and I'll end up with creepers in my inbox, or oh, I can't get on voice because I have a vocal cord injury and my voice is too hoarse to pick up on a mic. I can't come on cam because of creepy people. I can't come on cam because of this or that. It was always something. And it was just very hard catfisher vibes.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like she wanted to put extra pressure on you to get what she wanted. Is this about around the same time where she told people she was beating up Courtney and stuff?
If I remember correctly, that would come up randomly pretty much throughout the entirety of her online existence. She would make references to her family about how her parents suck, how she'd get into fights with her dad, how she'd get into fights with Courtney, just all sorts of shit.
I gotcha. So, what was the point where you realized that she was no good, and, like, what was the fallout?
This is something I've wanted to clear up for a while, because a lot of people that know kind of about this think our falling out was over World of Warcraft. That's not that's not like the full story. Like, that was the catalyst and the excuse that she used, but it was building up for a while prior to that. She started becoming very, like, she'd always gone through these mood cycles where we'd be fine and she'd be really sweet and nice to me and affectionate, and then her mood would flip and she'd get very angry and just self-deprecating and lashing out at me, and nothing I said would help. So toward the end, she started getting even more aggressive with me, because by that point I had moved out of my parents' house and was in a really bad relationship with somebody.
And what year was this about?
Our falling out was 2015.
Okay, so you're friends with her for 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So by then, I was in a bad relationship, so I was dealing with more crap in my real life and couldn't be at her beck and call 24/7 like I was before. And I think that was making her angry at me. So, like, I'd be online doing other things and not responding as quickly as she wanted me to, and she'd get angry at me for that. I'd tell her that I was too anxious to deal with, if she was in a really rough spot and I wasn't in the mental space to be able to handle that because I was also in a rough spot. She'd get angry at me for that. She'd make fun of me and downplay my anxiety issues. She made fun of my beliefs at the time. It was just, toward the end, it was getting really, really bad to the point where I felt afraid to approach her at all, especially if I knew she was in a mood. So I kind of started avoiding her because I was afraid to talk to her about it. The few times I had tried, it hadn't gone well. Yeah, there was a point where I noticed that she had unfriended me and then refriended me on Skype. She'd sent me messages and then deleted them. And she would do that kind of thing and then come back and apologize for being an asshole. and give me an excuse. One of the ones that I remember was she blamed it on caffeine withdrawal. So at one point, I tried to approach her about it and just said I needed to talk to her, and she was like, well, I'm getting offline in this amount of time, which was like 30 minutes to an hour. And I was like, okay, well, never mind, we can do this some other time when we don't have a time crunch. And she came back with, no, you do it now or you won't do it ever, blah blah blah. And I ended up getting offline because I just couldn't handle it. And when I logged back in and she had sent me this barrage of messages basically telling me that I had a time limit, that she expected me to basically come crawling back to her and talk to her, or else we were no longer going to be friends. And at that point, I just kind of snapped, and I sent her this paragraph just basically laying into her for everything, telling her that she had had me on eggshells, that I was afraid to talk to her about things because I knew she was either going to lash out at me or not listen, just going off at her for how she handled the whole World of Warcraft situation, which was so stupid. Like that was an argument that her and I had a few times, and what it boiled down to was I was curious about getting into the game. She was super into it at the time, so I had asked her if she minded if I asked her questions about it, like the lore and the mechanics and whatnot, and she said yeah. Because at the time, the computer that I had was just bottom shelf, bare bones. It couldn't run anything gaming-wise, like not even World of Warcraft. For some reason, she just refused to believe that. So I told her, like, I'm working on getting a better computer, and once I have one, I'll download it and play with you. And she just would not take that as an answer. She just kept telling me that I needed to download the game, that I'm never gonna do it, that just basically saying that I didn't know my own computer specs and what it could do and all this other crap. So it was the dumbest thing. It's just like, just wait for me to get a better computer. Like, this shouldn't even be a fight. And then she started getting annoyed at me for asking her questions about the game when she said I could and never told me, like, hey, I kind of don't want you to do this anymore. She never communicated that to me. She would just get pissy with me about it. Which was just confusing, and she'd do that a lot. Like, she'd tell you one thing and then get mad at you for doing it later without communicating that it's a problem now. After I came back into the picture and realized that she was with Lizzie, I found out how long she'd been with her, and I kind of started doing the math in my head and realized she had to have been talking to Lizzie before her and I had our falling out, and she never told me. So what I actually think happened there was she had met Lizzie, who was someone that she was, I guess, trying to be in a relationship with, and who was more willing to be in a relationship with her, which meant she no longer needed to keep me around because it was harder for her to get me to do things that she wanted me to do. And she needed a quote-unquote legitimate excuse to kick me out of her life because she had Lizzie now. So I think that was the main factor of her just torching the friendship over something stupid.
So you weren't like a person, you were just someone that could be sexual gratification, essentially?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's obvious in my chat logs. Anytime, like, since I've come back and started talking about my experiences with her, she has called me everything under the sun, from a fair weather friend to trying to say I was the abusive one in the situation, blah, blah, blah. And it's funny that she would call me the fair weather friend, because anytime I would try to confide in her things that were going on in my life, she would just completely ignore it. She would change the subject. Oftentimes she would make some shit up. Like, at one point, my brother ended up with a very bad blood infection that almost sent him into organ failure. And I told her about that, and her response was Tara Callie getting arrested. Did not acknowledge what I was going through at all, and just made up a story about her sock puppet getting arrested.
Yeah, I heard bits and pieces, like, she got pregnant and, like, just really obvious lies that, were obvious.
See, the pregnancy thing, that was before Tara Callie became an online sock puppet. That's more Courtney's side of the story. Because I just recently found out from Courtney that Tara Callie was, I guess her quote-unquote beta version was someone that Lily would make up to her family, and then she brought that on the internet and made it a sock puppet. So Tara Callie, according to Lily, was infertile when she was on the internet. The Tara Callie background is where it gets really dark. So allegedly, the story that Lily has for Tara Callie is that she was formerly from California and moved to Canada because she got kicked out of her parents' house because her parents caught her doing things with her underage teenage sister.
Oof.
And at one point, the story went that the underage teenage sister tried to run from California to Canada and froze to death. Tara Callie was also allegedly in a sexual relationship with her older brother, who died in the military. So yeah, there was a lot of very gross aspects to her story. She was a self-described nymphomaniac, a self-described, I don't know if I can say this for YouTube, but
we can censor it.
Someone who shouldn't be around children. And the arrest, like the story of the arrest has changed over the years since Lily has done her best to try and cover her ass and can't keep her story straight about it. But the story that I was told, and the story that she alluded to publicly on her Tumblr back then, was that Tara Callie had been arrested for several incidences of child predation and possession of illegal material involving children. In terms of the arrest, the story that Lily will tell today about it, if she acknowledges Tara's existence at all, because she flip-flops between acknowledging her existence to changing her name to Allison so people can't look her up, to denying that she ever knew this person. So the story I was told was Tara got arrested for weird shit involving children. The story Lily tells about how she handled it now was that she basically played the hero and went and told the police and led them to her computer and all this other shit. What happened with me, and what she told me, was that when this occurred, she asked me whether I thought that she should go over there and delete Tara's hard drives so that she wouldn't get a 30 to life sentence or whatever.
That's a lot of pressure.
And yeah, in hindsight, I'm ridiculously embarrassed with how I responded to a lot of what went on back then. I didn't know what the hell to do. Because 2 years prior to all that, I had had my own situation not believed by law enforcement or my family. Back then, you couldn't just call internationally the way you can today, not even over the internet. So I was in this weird position where Lily and quote-unquote Tara were taking advantage of my own vulnerabilities and normalizing a lot of this stuff. And I was at a point where if my own local law enforcement didn't believe something that happened to me, how the hell was I going to get in contact with law enforcement in another country over someone that I wasn't even sure really existed at the time? And I wish I'd walked away.
I mean, that makes sense. It's so when did you start becoming more vocal? Because I know now that a lot of people are on Tumblr as far as just talking about Lily, sharing screenshots about stuff she said and Stockholm and stuff.
So in 2017, I decided to look up her channel one day just to see how she was doing. And I didn't watch any of her videos, but I did see the one where she had officially come out as trans, and my initial reaction to that was I was happy for her. I assumed and hoped that she had become more comfortable in her own skin and had calmed down a lot, because at the time I thought that I was the only one that she had treated that way.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit after that, I saw Josh Scorcher's video talking about his experiences with her, and that's when it clicked that not only is she treating other people like that, she's using her platform to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because her and I were still talking when her and Josh Scorcher started talking.
Mm-hmm.
And she had told me that she had a crush on him and looked up to him and all this other stuff. So realizing that she had treated him that way after speaking so highly of him, like, I immediately got scared.
Mm-hmm.
I started Googling her to see if anything else had come out, and I came across the Fruit site thread. At the time, I didn't know the reputation of that website.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had never heard of it before that point. I just saw that she had a thread there, and they were talking about the Terra Cali rumors, the rumors of her being into animals, rumors of her being into kids, the Josh Scorcher stuff, the old fan fictions, like all of it. And I was surprised to see anyone talking about it, let alone as deeply as they were going. A lot of the rumors at that point were unsubstantiated,
Mm-hmm.
and I had evidence of all of them. So at that point, I felt that I had a responsibility to share the logs that I had that proved that she was dangerous, because she is.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one that had all the proof that she is into animals, she is into children, that the Terra Cali sock puppet existed and she was using it to basically groom not only me, but Blake Diamond and a few others. And I wasn't on Tumblr when Lily and I were talking, so I didn't see a lot of what she was posting on there back then.
Mm-hmm.
I started looking into some of the archives that other people had kept of hers. I started looking into the Dolores Vixen Tumblr account, which is the one associated with Terra Cali. And there was a lot more going on in public that I didn't know about,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of tied into the stuff that was going on with us in private, especially in regards to the rather vocalized delusion comic strips that she would make that often involved me.
Yeah, I heard about those, but continue.
Yeah, I never had any input on those comics. Like, not even the ones that involved me. Like, she would do them, and sometimes she would show me, sometimes she wouldn't. She made merch at one point. I don't know or think she sold any of it, but there is a screenshot floating around of a credit roll from one of her old videos where she's wearing a shirt that features me and her other real-life friend.
Mm.
And in hindsight, the way she depicted me and our relationship was very much trying to push this public view of, like, she was trying to encourage her audience to ship us, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, even my old TV tropes page that she made of my character, which I still have a screenshot of, like, it even acknowledges in that there was a one-sided sexual dynamic between us.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Lily knew full well what she was doing. It was private pressure between her and the sock puppet, and public pressure with trying to get her audience to ship us.
And the fallout had to do, like, did you just you ignore her when you when she sent the countdown, right?
Well, I wasn't online at the time. Like, she thought that I had just gone invisible and was ignoring her, but I had fully signed out of Skype.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was dealing with, like, I had gotten out of my bad relationship and had to move back home, so I was dealing with all the fallout and implications of that. Like, I was mentally and emotionally an absolute mess at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when she started trying to come at me with that kind of attitude, I just shut down and could not deal with it.
And that was it. That was the end of the friendship, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
only have a couple more questions, but like, what has the experience been like maintaining your blog, and has it been therapeutic? Has it been
Good
stressful?
Lord. All of the above, really?
Because I think you're the only one still, like, besides Courtney, obviously, that is still like, I'm here and Lily's still bad because Shiloh left the internet.
Yeah, I'm pretty much, aside from Courtney, I've been around the longest. I'm one of the oldest lore keepers. It's not a title that I'm proud of. It's been therapeutic in some ways and just extremely frustrating in others, because I've had to deal with Lily just twisting every aspect of everything I say. I've had to watch her do to others what she has done to me. I've had to watch her over the years get away with just absolutely heinous bullshit, both in public and in private. And she still has people that just blindly believe everything she says. I've been called everything from a fair weather friend to a sexual abuser to a stalker to a Nazi to a racist to a transphobe. Like, you name it, she's called me it at some point. She's tried to, like, her stories about me have changed over the years from, oh, I barely knew her and Blake, they were charity cases, blah blah blah, to, oh, she was a fair weather friend and she was only there for me when I was in a good mood, which isn't true. I did my best to try and support her when she was having her mental breaks. It's just, when she's like that, there's nothing you can say or do that will help. She just wants somebody that she can use as a punching bag to take her shit out on.
Was she verbally abusive during those fits?
Oh yeah. Like, I never really got on calls with her when she was like that. But yeah, when she was like that, she could get extremely cruel. Like, she would hit you where she knew it would hurt. She would try to make you feel stupid. She would try to make you doubt your own beliefs about yourself. She would harshly judge every decision that you made. If you expressed wanting to get into a hobby or craft, like, she did this to Michaela too, actually. Like, I had brought up at one point wanting to try and become a YouTuber in the commentary community. She immediately cut that down. So, like, she's just a cruel person, but she will breadcrumb you with bits of affection and support and flirting, and just, she'll be nice to you so that she can be cruel to you later.
Right. And, like, I have a different experience because I was never really interested. Like, for the record, I didn't really understand the Josh Scorcher stuff. I just knew that they had a falling out and something about Spike being a slave or something like that. So anyway, I didn't really understand it, but it was Michaela who was like, you should talk to Lily. Oh, we're getting engaged. And I trusted Michaela at the time. And like, okay, well, if Michaela says she's good and, you know, maybe she's like me who's gotten beat up by the internet, you know. So then she kind of wrote me in, and she was the one who wanted to talk to me, and I was just kind of like I was in her Discord server, and you know, she let me kind of just do whatever, and I didn't realize at the time why she told me she liked me, or I was attractive multiple times, you know, just stuff like that.
I don't think, from what I can recall, I don't think she has ever had a single person in her life that she has been close to in any capacity that she hasn't tried to turn into either a sexual or romantic situation at some point. More recently, she's tried to twist it and claim that, well, she's tried to claim that I was sexually abusive toward her on numerous occasions. And more recently, she has just gone fully mask off and has started pushing this narrative that she has openly admitted that her and I were sexual at one point, and she's trying to frame it as I wanted it at the time, and now I'm calling her abusive because I regret it. But here's the thing, Lily and I, when we knew each other, Lily was not, there was no indication from her that she was trans. Like, she was fully mask mode. And I'm a lesbian. So by her claiming openly that we were sexual at one point, she's basically admitting to coercion.
Right.
Because y'all can read in my chat logs how many times I told her no. You can see how guilty I felt over it, how much she tried to break me down, both directly and through Tarot Alley. How often I said I can't be with men that way. I'm not interested in you that way. And now it makes my skin crawl how far she has gone with this, to where now she thinks that she doesn't even need to hide it anymore.
Right.
If I thought that I was the only person that she had treated this way, I would never have said anything. It wasn't until I realized that she was treating other people like this, and that she was using her platform as a means to lure people in and use them, including minors.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that scares me the most, because I know for a fact that she is into minors that way. I know for a fact she is into animals that way. She has openly told me herself. She has written about it in her fan fictions consistently. Oh, and that reminds me, she did write Stockholm. I was there. I was there. I was there when she was writing it. I didn't know how bad it was until well after the fact. But she did write Stockholm. As it is, it was not edited in any way. She wrote it like that. And she was proud of it. And there's another fic that not a lot of people know about that came before it, which in my opinion is somewhat worse, because it's Stockholm. She tries to use, oh, well, this bad person was punished in the narrative, so it's fine, which, first of all, isn't true. And second of all, the first fic that she wrote doesn't have any of that. It's a short. It was written under the pen name of her sock puppet, which is Uncredited. And the reason I know that's the pen name of her sock puppet is because there is a post on the Tarot Alley Tumblr where she takes credit for it. And the Uncredited username has popped up in multiple places since Tarot Alley's alleged arrest. There's a fic, which I don't even really want to say the title of it because I don't want people to go looking it up, but basically it was incestuous, because of course it was. It involved an underage OC that was popular at the time, not one of hers, but an OC from a different author, different fanfic. And it was this OC and Twilight Sparkle, and the story was that Twilight had adopted this young child OC. The child OC expressed that she had a crush on Twilight Sparkle. Twilight leaned into it, and pretty much the entire fic is one long, extremely disturbing bathtub scene. Yeah. It's extremely graphic. It is a child predator's wet dream. Like, full stop. And that was basically Stockholm 1.0, because she wrote that before she ended up writing Stockholm. And I think she wrote that under a different name to see if she could get away with it and see what her audience reaction would be. And then she went even further and wrote Stockholm and completely tormented her co-author throughout the entire process.
Like, in what way?
The co-author was a lot like me at the time. She was very sweet, shy, soft-spoken. She didn't really stand up for herself a lot. And what I've gathered after coming back to this and looking through some of the archived public posts, there's a post of an interaction between Lily and her where Lily straight up says, "You're talking to the person who convinced her to write Rainbow Dash as a pedophile." There's posts of the co-author talking about how it was extremely difficult for her to be involved in that, to the point where she'd have emotional breakdowns about it. And at one point there was a scene that Lily wanted to do that was so dark and so awful that she had such a massive emotional breakdown about it that was the one scene that Lily decided not to put in. And eventually the co-author was kicked off of the project by Lily because she started pushing back too much on things that Lily wanted to do. And I truly think Lily gets off on doing that kind of shit to people. She likes breaking people down. She likes pushing boundaries. She likes feeling like she has the control and the ability to force, coerce, and manipulate people into doing or being a part of really dark and disgusting shit. She has no remorse. And anytime she falls out with somebody, if someone walks away from her or if she discards someone, she will either act like she never really knew the person that well and they weren't close at all. She'll try and say that she was the victim in the situation, or she'll just write them off as a insert bigot here. It's never her fault. She's always the victim, and she uses that to lure people in. She used it with me. With me, it was she was a victim of her family. With Lizzie, I'm sure it was she was a victim of her family and a victim of me. Then it was, oh, I'm a victim of Lizzie. That's always how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
She will get a hold of people. She will use them until they can't take it anymore. She'll throw them away, and then she will paint herself as the victim to get someone else in.
Mm-hmm.
And it genuinely scares me that she's had a platform for as long as she has.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she's kind of starting to do with me. I think she's kind of doesn't know what I'm gonna do, from what I can tell. But, she's like, oh, KP got upset about this thing. And I'm just like, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah, that's what she always does. If someone falls out with her, before they can start talking about what they went through, she will start weaving a narrative to cover her ass and discredit whoever she thinks is going to start talking about her.
Yeah, that was something we noticed, as soon as I was done with that call, she was on Tumblr, allegedly with a, she was in the hospital, I know she was a bad liar, but, she's like, I feel so used, and, it was, a 3-minute clock, and I'm just like...
Yeah, she's...
What?
She's one of the biggest projectors I have ever witnessed in my fucking life. She will shamelessly take whatever she did to you and flip it to where she was the victim of the thing that she did to you.
Right.
And she has done it with every single person that I have seen roll through her general orbit over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any notes to end on that you want to add?
Besides ick.
Yeah. Well, if anyone out there is still in Lily's camp and thinks I'm a no good, lying, full of shit, whatever, I've got my chat logs that back up everything I've said here in regards to my interactions with her and the sock puppet. There is a ton of archived evidence of her own public Tumblr posts that she has long since deleted. There's archived evidence of the 2 fanfics that I've mentioned here. They're not edited in any way. None of us have the time or the desire to edit 10-ish years worth of shit. And you cannot, a lot of the public Tumblr posts aren't just screenshot, they're archived on the Wayback Machine, which you, as far as I know, you can't edit that.
Right.
It's a snapshot of a web page. Like, you can't just go in and mess with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's years worth of testimony, and there's years worth of documented archive evidence of all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. And where can people find you if they have more questions?
My Tumblr blog is Brit's Galaxy Brain. I've kind of stepped away for now, but I still check in from time to time in case anyone wants to DM me or send me asks.
Mm-hmm.
You can reach me on there.
Cool. Well, sorry that this isn't a fun conversation, but I appreciate your time.
This is something I've wanted to get out for a while, so thank you for letting me come on and giving me a platform.
Yeah, of course.
I just remembered this. This is something I wanted to bring up. In terms of her old fanfics in Stockholm and whatnot, the fanfics that she swears up and down she didn't write and has no idea what anyone's talking about, one of the characters that she still uses to this day and that people still draw art of to this day is from one of her Stockholm installations. Because there was actually a handful of them. Like, it was a series, it wasn't just one fic. Her character Sage, who is the rainbow-haired, more feminine boy character that she has right now, originally Sage was Spectrum Dash from the Stockholm installation of the Dash family, who was the son of Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy, who, if I remember correctly, in the Dash family was in an incestuous relationship with his sibling and both of his parents. And that is a character that she still uses, rebranded, and pretends that she has no idea where he came from.
I mean, like, she's just a bad liar. Like, I just remember, like, Up to the Call is just like, oh, I broke my leg, Lizzie did a thing, and I'm just like...
Oh, see, that's an old story of hers, too, that she's recycled.
Mm-hmm.
Because back in the day, she claimed to have a limp from an alleged ex-girlfriend stabbing her either in the back or in the leg. She's claimed to have been stabbed in the eye with a nail file. Not only is she a bad liar, but she recycles a lot of her old stories. But because she has her audience so scared to look into any of this because they're afraid that they're going to be wrong and end up being as bad as the evil, bigoted stalkers that are after her, they don't go research this stuff. Because she's got them convinced that it's all fake, it's all a smear campaign, we're all out to get her because she's trans, we're all out to get her because she's indigenous, which she's not. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that. It has to do with the fact that she is a genuinely monstrous, disgusting person who should not have a platform, who should not be allowed around kids or animals or really any vulnerable individual. Especially if you've been through any kind of abuse, because she will exploit the fuck out of that.
So there you have it. The thing to remember is that I beat my horrible claims with proof, confessions, and general hard facts. Lily and Michaela, to a lesser extent, don't have that privilege. So that's why I thought it was important to make this video. I'd appreciate if you spread it around, and note that this video is not going to be monetized anyway. I don't plan to make any other videos about Lily. A lot of other YouTubers are doing something similar, unless things just kind of get stupid. I'm afraid of nobody. Stay safe out there.